You're probably doing everything right and still wondering why it doesn't feel like it's working. You plan, you push, you show up, you keep telling yourself, I just need to try harder. But the harder you try, the heavier it feels. And deep down, you're tired. Not just physically, but energetically. Because forcing something takes more than effort. It takes your peace with it. There's a kind of struggle that looks like discipline on the outside, but inside it's anxiety. A quiet panic that says, if I stop now, everything might fall apart. If I let go, nothing will come. If I don't fight for it, I'll lose it. That's the trap. Not your work ethic, not your effort, but the energy behind it. The tightness, the pressure, the need for everything to move now. That's what blocks you. Not life, not timing, not your path, but the force. And force isn't flow. Force is fear dressed up as hustle. You think you're moving things forward, but really, you're just exhausting yourself, trying to pull what isn't ready. And here's the shift. When you stop forcing, things don't fall apart. They fall into place. But only when you're calm enough to see it, still enough to receive it, detached enough to stop gripping at things you don't actually trust to stay. Letting go of force doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing what's aligned, not what's frantic. It means making space for life to meet you halfway instead of trying to carry the entire weight of becoming. So if it feels heavy, if nothing's moving, maybe it's not time to push harder. Maybe it's time to loosen your grip and finally let things move how they're meant to. One of the biggest signs that you're forcing something is when it starts to feel like you're dragging it uphill. The conversation that always leaves you drained. The goal that needs constant fixing and redoing. The person you're trying to reach, but it always feels one-sided. You tell yourself, this is just what effort looks like. But deep down, something doesn't sit right. Because the harder you try to pull it toward you, the more it slips out of reach. That's not flow, that's resistance. And the hardest part, it feels normal because we've been taught that if something matters, you have to fight for it, push for it, bleed for it. And sure, some things require work, real committed energy. But there's a difference between effort and emotional strain. There's a difference between discipline and desperation. When something is aligned, it responds. It meets you. It breathes with you. It doesn't need to be dragged into place. But when you're forcing it, whether it's a relationship, a career path, or your own healing, you end up molding yourself into something you're not just to keep it alive. And that's not progress. That's self-abandonment. You don't have to keep breaking yourself to keep something barely working. Sometimes the most powerful move isn't to push harder. It's to pause and ask, why am I trying to force this in the first place? Is it fear? Is it the story you told yourself about how things were supposed to go? Is it the belief that your value is tied to how much you can endure? Because when you start asking those questions, you begin to untangle your worth from your struggle. You begin to realize that flow isn't passive, it's responsive. It's what happens when you stop controlling every outcome and start allowing life to move with you, not against you. You were never meant to chase alignment through exhaustion. You were meant to walk in rhythm with it. And rhythm doesn't need to be forced, it needs to be felt. Most people don't realize they're forcing things because on the outside, it just looks like effort, like they're being persistent, committed, or staying strong. But inside there's tension, there's fear, there's pressure. And behind that pressure, there's usually one quiet belief running the show. If I don't make this happen, nothing will. That's where the grip tightens. That's where the anxiety starts. That's where life starts to feel like it's working against you instead of with you. Because when you believe it all depends on your control, you leave no room for trust, no room for timing, no room for grace. Force often comes from fear. Fear that you're falling behind. Fear that if you slow down, you'll lose your chance. Fear that if you don't act now, someone else will take what was meant for you. But here's what life's been trying to show you the whole time. What's real doesn't respond to fear. It responds to alignment. It doesn't need chasing. It needs clarity. It doesn't need obsession. It needs presence. And alignment doesn't happen when your nervous system is on fire. It happens in stillness, in trust, in knowing that life isn't something to force into shape. It's something to co-create from peace. When you stop forcing, something incredible happens. You start seeing what was never flowing to begin with. You start noticing how often you were pouring energy into dead ends. You start feeling how much more peaceful it is to move with life instead of wrestling it every step of the way. And suddenly, you don't want to grip anymore. You don't want to overthink it. You don't want to fix every silence, chase every outcome, or prove anything to anyone. You just want peace. And not the kind you have to earn, but the kind that returns the moment you finally let go of trying to hold everything together. Because when you stop forcing, you don't lose control. You gain perspective. You start seeing what's actually meant for you. Because for once, you're not blocking it with fear. When you stop forcing everything outside of you, something inside you starts to change too. At first, it feels strange, almost like guilt. You're so used to pushing, fixing, chasing, overthinking, that stillness feels like you're doing something wrong. You might even feel lazy, disconnected, like maybe you're falling behind. But sit with it long enough, and you'll start to feel something else. Relief. Not the explosive kind, but the quiet kind that settles deep in your body. Like your shoulders finally drop. Like your breath goes just a little deeper. Like your nervous system, the one you've been dragging through chaos, starts to come back online. And in that space, you realize something you've probably never been told. You weren't made to live in survival mode forever. You weren't made to constantly hustle for worth. You weren't made to force love to stay, or success to stick, or peace to arrive on your timeline. You were made to move with life, to walk in sync with your own energy, to act from alignment, not anxiety. And here's the thing. When you start living this way, it doesn't mean you lose your ambition. It doesn't mean you stop showing up. It means you stop showing up from fear. You stop saying yes when your body says no. You stop chasing people who wouldn't choose you in return. You stop confusing exhaustion with progress. Because now you're not pouring energy into what's resisting you. You're flowing into what responds. And what responds to you when you're calm, grounded, and clear is always better than what you had to force into place. It's more honest, more peaceful, more aligned. Because it's not built on fear of losing. It's built on trust in receiving. And here's what most people don't understand until it's too late. Force might get you something faster, but it never lets you keep it peacefully. It'll cost you your rest, your clarity, your center. It might look like progress on the surface, but inside you're unraveling. Letting go of force is what holds you together. Not because you did less, but because you finally let yourself receive more with ease. There's another layer to this that most people overlook. Forcing things doesn't just block life. It blocks your relationship with yourself. Because every time you override your intuition just to keep pushing, every time you ignore your exhaustion to prove you're strong, every time you silence your gut and say yes when everything inside screams no, you teach yourself one quiet message: I don't trust me. That's what force does over time. It disconnects you from your body, from your timing, from your wisdom, and from your ability to recognize what actually feels right. When you're constantly in the mode of make it happen, you stop asking, is this even meant for me? You stop listening. You stop noticing the signs, the friction, the exhaustion, because your focus is stuck on controlling the outcome instead of honoring the process. But when you slow down, when you loosen your grip, when you stop trying to squeeze certainty out of every moment, you finally start hearing yourself again. And that's where everything begins to shift. You start acting from clarity, not pressure. You begin creating from peace, not panic. You speak more slowly, more honestly. You stop rushing toward endings that were never meant to hold you. And something deeper happens too. You begin to trust yourself again. Not in a loud, confident, perfect way, but in a soft, quiet knowing that says, I don't have to force this. If it's right, it will respond. If it's aligned, it will move. And if it's not, I don't want it to stay. That kind of self-trust changes everything. It makes you stop apologizing for your slowness. It makes you stop performing to keep people comfortable. It makes you stop begging for things that never truly nourished you. Because now you're not showing up to chase approval. You're showing up to stay in alignment. And alignment never asks you to force anything. It asks for presence. It asks for awareness. It asks for truth. And the moment you begin living from that space, that's when everything starts working again. Not because you pushed harder, but because you finally stopped pushing at all. Here's something no one teaches us growing up. Life already has momentum. You don't always have to be the one pushing. You don't always have to manufacture every opportunity, manage every timeline, control every outcome. There's a natural rhythm to things, but we've been taught to outrun it, to think that stillness means failure, to believe that if we're not constantly doing, we're falling behind. But what if the exact opposite is true? What if all the space you've been afraid to leave empty was actually the space where everything meaningful wants to land? Because when you're forcing, there's no room. No room for synchronicity. No room for softness. No room for unexpected answers to show up without being hunted down. Force doesn't just block peace. It blocks possibility. It says, if it's not happening this way, on this schedule, with this result, then it's wrong. But life isn't a checklist. It's a current. And the people who move best in life aren't the ones who fight the current. They're the ones who learn how to listen to it. They feel when something isn't flowing. And instead of pushing harder, they pause. They get quiet. They adjust. And because of that, they're able to course correct faster than the ones sprinting toward a wall they never questioned. Letting go of force doesn't mean you let go of your goals. It means you stop trying to micromanage the path to them. It means you trust that some steps aren't visible yet. And that doesn't mean you're lost. It means you understand that what's for you is not just about effort. It's about timing, energy, readiness, and alignment. And the moment you truly stop forcing, you begin to see. You see that maybe it wasn't working because you were pushing. You see that space isn't a threat, it's a doorway. You see that some things move faster when you stop trying to make them hurry. And you finally stop running past the very answers you've been searching for. Because now you're not moving from fear of missing out. You're moving from trust in what's meant to find you. So maybe this is the part where you stop. Not because you're giving up, but because you finally realized you don't need to force what's already yours. You don't need to push your way into alignment. You don't need to wrestle life into working. You don't need to chase peace like it's running away from you. Peace comes the moment you remember life was never meant to be controlled. It was meant to be experienced. And when you stop gripping every moment so tightly, you finally start to feel them. The small ones, the quiet ones, the ones you missed while you were too busy trying to make it happen. Letting go of force doesn't mean letting go of responsibility. It means letting go of the belief that everything depends on your struggle. It means finally trusting that if something is for you, it won't need to be dragged. It will meet you, match you, move with you, not against you. So from now on, when things feel stuck, when the path feels heavy, when you find yourself exhausted from trying to bend life into shape, breathe, step back, loosen your grip, and ask yourself, is this actually aligned, or am I just afraid to let it go? That one question can change everything, because the moment you stop forcing, you begin to receive what was always trying to reach you. Not with chaos, not with urgency, but with ease. And if something in this message softened something in you, if it gave your mind a little room to breathe, if it reminded you that there's another way to live, then take a second to like this video so it reaches someone else who might need that reminder today too. And if you made it to the end, comment the word ease below. Just that one word. It tells me you're no longer trying to force your way forward. You're learning to allow it instead. That's where the shift happens. That's where life begins to respond. Not because you did more, but because you finally stopped doing what was never needed to begin with.